here we are, late pre-spawn. This is right before the spawn. First 2 baits is kind of a tough one. Now we're gonna go lakes here. This is for lakes. We're not talking about natural lakes or grassy lakes or rivers. This is, I mean, some of this can be applicable to other places, but this is mostly just regular lakes right before the spawn. Now, right before the spawn, sometimes you can have really good fish and sometimes it can be kind of tough. So my first 2 are baits that will kind of provoke that territorial reaction from bass. Now to me, that is what I'm really focusing on in that immediate that late pre-spawn. And like right before the spawn, those fish are getting ready to do their deal. They should be up there in those areas where they're gonna be spawning. I'm gonna put something in there that is gonna trigger a reaction out of them for their territorial. So number 1, I might look for a little bit of stained water, and I'm gonna go with the Spro Fat John. This color is kind of a tough deal. If there's shad in the area, there's some bait fish in the area, I'm definitely going with homemade shad. A flashy color, the color's got a lot of flash to it. I'm gonna throw that on a Cashin John Cruz Icon square bill rod, 7 foot. It's got a nice moderate taper. I'm gonna probably go with 12-pound Sunline Crank FC Daiwa reel on there. But if the water's a little more stained, I might go to old school chartreuse blackback. I've caught a pile of fish right before the spawn on that color. Really like that. And if it's got a little bit of color and I just want to kind of change it up, Cellmate. Those are kind of my top 3 colors. But that Fat John's a little more presence. It's got a lot of thump to it. It's got some roll to it. And that bait hunts around a little bit. So those fish, they're starting to set up in that late pre-spawn. They're starting to set up like really, really close to where those fish are going to bed. We're talking within 10, 20 feet of where those fish are going to spawn. So you might be around dock poles, you might be around isolated stumps up shallow. You know, this crankbait runs 4 to 5 feet deep on 14-pound tests. So you are going to be right in that range, scratching around, bouncing around, right in that range where those fish are going to be spawning. And you know, not every fish that's going to be setting up is going to be accessible for a crankbait cast. Sometimes those fish might be back behind some bushes or on the backside of a laydown. I mean, you can get close to them. You can get close to them with a crankbait, but you may not be able to get right into their wheelhouse, right into their area. So for that, I'm going to go Missile Baits D-Bomb. I was kind of debating on, Destroyer. I've had a lot of good luck with the Destroyer. I like the Destroyer. Had a lot of good luck with the mini flip, or jig or any kind of big jig. But 3/8 ounce weight, Missile Baits D-Bomb, Gamakatsu 5/0 hook. If the water's not real dirty, I mean, just even some stain to it, that green pumpkin red there is something about it during the spawn and immediate pre-spawn, like right before late pre-spawn. I mean, late pre-spawn, something about that color. Probably go 20 or 25-pound Sunline shooter there. Medium heavy Cashin flipping stick, 7.6, high speed Daiwa Tatula reel is probably going to be the, that's what I've already got it. I've already got it on. But that's going to be what I'm going to go to when I can't quite get to those areas that I want to cast my crankbait in there. I can't quite get there with that crankbait. I'm going to take that bait, pitch it in there. If we have flooded bushes, that's always key. We're talking in the middle to the backs of the pockets or creek arms. We're not talking main channel. That's usually not where this is going to be going on. You might have a lot of pre-spawn stuff going on. Main lake, even just inside the main lake, that we're talking back towards the pockets, a lot of those types of banks and types of cover where those fish are going to be spawning. That's where they're going to be setting up, or really close to that. They're going to be setting up in that immediate late pre-spawn, right before the spawn starts kicking off. That's probably what I'm gonna, those two baits are hands down my first two. That D-bomb, I've had some really good days right before the spawn. Like, you might even think that there's gonna be some fish spawning. If you get into clear water, you might even see some fish up there near beds, maybe not on beds, but you'll see some fish up there, almost look like they're sunning, hanging out near stumps, hanging out near, you know, isolated poles or dock pilings in the water. That could be a good indication that it's getting ready to go down, but it's not quite ready. And when I recognize that, and I can't find fish on the beds, a lot of times I will go to water that's a little more stained where you can't quite see them, and those fish don't get quite as spooky, and they seem to react better to crankbaits and to creature baits being flipped in there or cast in there. They get a little more territorial, as I was talking about earlier. That's kind of the reaction that I'm going for. You're going for that territorial reaction with those two baits. You can use some other baits, of course. You know, chatter baits are good. Spinner baits are real good this time of year. Yeah, a lot of thump. That kind of stuff is what we're going after here, to get those fish to react on that territorial instinct that they get right before the spawn and during the spawn. They get defensive. They are staking claim to their area, to what they're getting ready to spawn, or right near where they're getting ready to spawn. Sometimes that might happen even on little gravel points that are really close. Like, you might have a little small spawning pocket, and then you'll have like a little piece of gravel or a little rock vein or something that's like 10-20 yards from where you could picture them spawning. That could be where they're set up. And sometimes those places replenish, sometimes they don't. Because remember, those fish are territorial. You might go through there and you might catch one. You're like, oh, sweet, that's a really good deal. You better start chalking that up to a pattern, because those fish, you know, they were running off every other fish that wanted to set up on that spot because of that territorial instinct. So anyway, I hope those two baits help you in your late pre-spawn, right before the spawn time period on the lake near you. If you've got some that you have had success with, I would like to hear about it as well. So drop it down there in the comments. And always, I appreciate you watching.